oh, Russo's gonna die at this age, da 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 da. What is up, everyone? It's Russo. I hope everyone is doing well. Today's ASMR sip is sponsored by 1907. Check out 1907.com. Coupon code Russo. Let's not forget about the ASMR spritz. Coupon code Russo, Intelligent Elephant, as well as Young LA coupon code. You get it. Coupon code. I'll shut the fuck up. Today, I'm going to be going into the topic of the actual damage occurs with said SARM steroid blast over the length of exposure to high dosages. This is where the mass blast from Tony of Andrew, shout out Tony, kind of makes sense, right? Not entirely of like you can gain that much actual tissue that quickly. My 2 cents, you can't. But the overall prognosis of doing a short, concise blast and doing everything perfectly and then harm mitigating it and maintaining as much as you can on an elevated cruise is the way to go versus a 16+ week traditional blast. More damage is going to occur. I think it's funny, you know, I'll see in the comments like, oh, Russo's gonna die at this age, da 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 da. Let's think about this, right? It's the amount of time to the extreme dosages that's really what's going to cause the damage, right? If you mutate your body and accustom it to this extreme androgenic environment, shit's going to start going bad. If you do a short little blast, everything's on point, you have all the money spent on food, blood work, all the ancillaries, the post cycle, the on cycle support, and then you train your ass off. You know exactly what you're going for, size or getting shredded. You use the cycle correctly. Then you go into a cruise quickly, harm mitigate all your blood work. That's the harm mitigate way to do it. The traditional way is just boom, 16 weeks on, extreme blast, and you sit on the extreme androgen level for a much longer period of time. More damage is going to occur as you sit exposed to the extreme dosages. So that's where MPMD makes the statement of you only have so many blasts in the tank, which is true, right? That's where the damage is occurring. Each blast that's super long, you can only do so many of them before your body's like, all right, enough is enough, unless you're a genetic freak. There's a lot of people who mix up good genetics, right? There's hyper responders to drugs, and then there's people, you put tons of drugs in them, and their blood work looks fine, their imaging looks fine, and somehow they get away with being exposed with really no side effects. And those people exist too. So it's not just like how you look on the gear, it's how the gear impacts you internally and if you can tolerate high dosages without said side effects easily. And that's all genetic predispositions essentially on if you can tolerate gear for a long period of time or if you hyper respond. I just see that a lot. I think a lot of people should, in my opinion, stop blasting for like 5 years straight on end, constantly putting shit in their body, never cruising, never doing a take a couple steps back instead of trying to sprint forward, clearing it all out and getting your health back in check, and then creeping on another blast when it's strategic. Instead, what dudes do is they redline, have body dysmorphia, they're mentally addicted to the individual compounds, and then the side effects rear their heads like a decade later, where if they did a concise blast, they maintained it on TRT. Did a concise blast, maintain on TRT. Each time you go up in that little blast, you get all the gains you can, and then boom, harm mitigated, go back to TRT, or you go on an elevated cruise of whatever you think will maintain the tissue, and you inchworm along instead of redlining. Now, I think, again, you need really big dosages to go far as a pro, so for you to think that you're just gonna redline forever and nothing bad's gonna happen, I don't really see that playing out. And even like the biggest guys do take off seasons and they do come completely off, lose a bunch of their physique, and then they get back there. That's the other thing. Once you get to a physique one time, you can get back there so much easier than that first time. That's, in my opinion, why I did the bulk to 250, because it was so freaking difficult for me to get above 250. But now It's much easier in the fact that I could get back there very quickly if I so chose to, because my body's already been there. My body does not forget. So I feel like that's the misconception. People think that, oh, your mortality is going to be destroyed if you know, do a blast and then cruise back on HRT. So if you do a blast for 8 weeks, expose yourself to high dosages for 8 weeks, you get your results, and you pretty much peak the physique that you can maintain on TRT. Then you go back on TRT, you get your shit in check, get your health in check. You're really only facing the side effects of TRT. You're not facing the side effects if you did a small mini blast, if you harm mitigate it right after and look at the blood work. It's the dudes who sit exposed to these extreme dosages that pay the price. You cannot sit exposed to extreme dosages for like 6 months and expect your body not to mutate, get accustomed to that extreme androgenic environment, and be freaked the fuck out from that extreme androgenic environment. The naive young kids who just do that cycle indefinitely because they still don't look where they need to be because they're not paying their dues. Like what I've learned, and it's so easy because like I don't have like the greatest genetics. I'm like the hard gaining phenom that just proves like if you have the work ethic, even if you're a hard gainer, you can kind of be whatever size you want. You know, I don't think anyone thought I'd be above 260 ever in my life. What I've gathered is basically like they'll do it for like 2-3 years, and then where do they go from there? Do they go even more extreme dosages when it's time to compete? When these genetically blessed individuals who are open pro, or the guys who inchwormed off mini blast, then they want to hit a contest blast, they already know what they're doing, they already have their training, they already have their coach, and they've already paid their dues in building their base. They're going to hit the same amount of drugs that the individual who's trying to sprint out the gates is going to do. They are going to be able to maintain it long term. Like, my thing is, you must fluctuate. You must go back down to go forward. Otherwise, what goes up must come down. To become pro and open, you have to use extreme dosages. I don't care what's propagated on the internet. I know for a fact you have to use big boy dosages if you want to be a big boy. Straight up, I have nothing against that. I'm a fan of bodybuilding. What I'm saying is, where do you go from there? Do you go even higher with the compounds and then you have libido problems because you're used to using 2 to 3 grams, and now when you cruise on 600 it's barely working, and that's 600 mgs. So you have to be extremely careful. It's not like this free ride in a sense. You have to be calculated, strategic, and know what you want out of being enhanced and not being an idiot. The biohacking community has invaded bodybuilding and more harm mitigated it to most people want a slightly, you know, TRT plus physique, OEM plus physique, like an OEM plus modified car. It's OEM still, but it's modified. That's like TRT with a little bit of an oral on top or another injectable on top. Not bodybuilding where you're pushing over a gram of gear trying to create a competitive physique. If you are, you have to do it strategically and take breaks and come back down. Don't be that guy who redlines forever, comes in my DMs at Russo lifts, and can't get up even on 250 milligrams of TRT. I will see you guys in my next video.